Welcome back to Eye on the Money, and today on the show we're discussing children and money, and with me in studio I have Maureen Radoli, who is the head of personal financial management at Centonomy. Now Maureen, you are talking to us about basically how the importance of financial literacy from a young age cannot be understated, and why this should even start right from within the homes. As parents, what are some of the little things we need to do to instill that sort of discipline in children? And you had even talked to us about, involving them in some of the decisions, letting them see how you plan how to handle money. But I would like to tackle an aspect whereby, fine, we're teaching children how to manage money, but we're seeing a situation where children have also started making money from an early age, right? So you'll find a child, for example, like your son who's turning 4, maybe they'll have a small role in a local drama show, they'll make money from that, or they'll be on a billboard, maybe an insurance bill. I mean, children have started making money from an early age. In that situation, for a child who's cautious and they know, okay, now I'm working, because that's how they're making the money, how do you handle them knowing that they have this big amount of money in the bank? How much access should you let them have to accessing that money, planning for that money? How do you handle such a situation of maybe a child who started working from a young age and managing their money?
So we talked, in fact, that brings me back to one of our programs. We teach teenagers on how to manage their money. And during the last class, I was privileged to train them. And when we're just giving them projects to work on, one of the things that we tell them is, we're giving you this amount of money and please come up with a business idea. Ingrid, you'll be amazed at what children are doing. They went through a marketing plan. They talked about how they're going to market their products on socials. They came up with complementaries. They came up with the same product but different categories. So they were actually targeting a premium client, they're targeting. So they came up with different customer segments. And I'm like, these kids, and we're talking about 12-year-olds who have that kind of a mindset. And when I asked them, where are you going to get the money? They're like, we have money in our accounts. And I was like, okay, now this is a good one. So one of the things that we taught them is you need to start, before you spend money, have a goal. And your goal has to be very clear. And remember when I talked about making sure that you're teaching a child on 3 aspects when it comes to saving money. Of course, there's saving. So you need to save your money for a rainy day. Number 2, you need to save money for the purposes of just giving to the less fortunate. Because that also gives you because let me tell you, what you're doing should impact another person. That's what humanity is all about. Then number 3, we are talking about, of course, there's saving and then paying yourself. So buying yourself a gift. So they need to have a plan and they need to share that with you. Allow them to create that plan because you have worked with them through. So tell them, okay, what do you want to do with the money? And it doesn't have to be so much because you're paying for their needs. They're eating in the house. Though I know one of my very former bosses I used to work for, and this was, in fact, they actually used to plan financial literacy, but I didn't know because I've really, really exposed. So the children would actually, they were paid, they used to work during holidays, and they were paid quite a lump sum of money. Like they used to earn, I think, 3 times what I was earning. Yes, because they owned the factory, the business was their parents. So that's the money that was going into their accounts 3 times. So what they used to do is they used to pay house allowance in their parents' home. But you pay. You pay for living there. You actually participate in paying for shopping. You'll be told you are the one who's going to be buying meal because you have a lot of money. So make sure, as I said initially during the last show, that if you do not assign your money to a particular thing, you will spend it aimlessly. So just teach them, fine, okay, you have an amount of money. It is important for you you have this money, but you cannot access, probably just give them a certain limit. You can only access this much to be able to spend it on this particular thing. And that you'll have already cultivated a certain habit. There's delayed gratification, they'll understand planning, they'll also know, you'll also have taken them through understanding what is a priority right now. Because talking about, because kids will always want to know, I'll tell you, Mom, today I want to go for swimming. And you're like, okay, but I had not planned for us to go for swimming. So there are priorities in life that they also need to learn. And I had said initially that children are very observant. And that's why you'll realize that somebody will tell you, hey, Ingrid, you're so much like your mom, but how did you learn that? If another family would have adopted you, you would have actually acted or lived the way or just imitated them and how they're living their life. So it's important for us to make sure you have taken your children through planning. Let them make those mistakes. And the other thing is, apart from that, remember I mentioned about debt. You know,
Yes.
children should also learn about debt, yes? I know people who help their children start off businesses, and this is about, there are few who are making money, young children who are making money. But you as a parent, what are you doing to support your child? Support their giftings. Support their giftings. And once they do that, teach them. There are those kids who bake today. I know of a child, I just forgot her name. Probably you can post that in a social later, just so that parents can just go through her story. This is a 9-year-old who's made billions in dollars by making lemonade and selling.
Right.
It's a story that's all over social media. So she's making a lot of money. But part of what she's doing with this money is actually helping out the less fortunate. So there's a cause. It is important for us to just help children to realize a cause for spending their money. And that is why we talk about goals. So then they'll understand it a little bit differently, but at the end of the day, what you're trying to instill is you must have a goal. Yes.
And you know now, Maureen, everything that you've said has really got me thinking that maybe the reason why like children with bad financial habits turn into adults with even worse financial habits is really because there's no concerted effort, like you've said, right? There are certain families that actively go out there to make sure this happens, but also I feel like there's a gap in our curriculum.
There is a gap.
Right? So as a parent who maybe is too busy, and you know how the reality is of late, parents are not really in touch with their children, so they leave that as the role of the school. But do you think there's something missing there in our curriculum to, you know, enable this practically for children, you know, to know this is how I can handle money, and how can that be addressed? Because I know at Centonomy, that's something you're very big on.
Yes, yes, yes. And I hope that people in the education sector are listening to this. If only they could. Some of the issues that we're struggling with, corruption, greed, it all comes from not having these skills. Because remember, if we're able to have the financial literacy just integrated in the education system, we would actually have a lot. And that's something that Centonomy has actually been thinking about, and how to do that. And there's something I know that is working behind the scenes, but I know we'll be ready when the stakeholders are ready as well. Because if children are taught delayed gratification, if children are taught planning, if children are taught about goal setting, trust me, they'll make such a big difference. I know of a young lady who came and did a program. Of course, she was a teenager then. And she came back just to share her story because she wanted to inspire other young people. And she was like, you know what, I started baking vegan cakes because I realized there are very few people who bakes vegan cakes. Because people use milk and eggs. But she realized there's a market that
there is a big market
that would want to have vegan pastries.
Yes.
So she went ahead and started doing that. Do you know this girl, without the help of the parents, financed her trip to Portugal when she was 19 years old.
Wow.
So that is the kind of people, citizens that Kenyans should have. Like at 19 years old, I should have been able to actually raise money to pay fees for myself and help another needy child in class. Or perhaps if, you know, like you learn to take up responsibilities when you're young, taking charge of your life, it can be such an exciting thing, and parents will no longer need to worry about now, if something happens to me, now what next? Even if you're writing a will, because that's one of the modules we teach in class, that when you are writing a will, you're of course leaving what you have worked for your children, and we should actually be doing that, just giving our children a little bit of a soft landing in life, to start off in life. So are you living a responsible adult to manage your estate? So if you're able to handle that when you're still very young, trust me, this Kenya will be a very different place to live in.
Science,
because it's a beautiful country, and it requires beautiful people with the right skills. Yes.
So even as you wrap it up for us, like we did in the final episode, if you were to leave us with a financial tip in like just teaching them young, training your child on good money skills from a young age, what would you tell parents?
Number one, they need to learn that for you to be able to earn money, there's an effort that has to be put in. Like you need to put some effort in order to get some money. Then number two, you need to start saving. Yes, and save, and you don't need to have a lot of money, because again, when you're involving your children, giving them like 50 shillings, 100 shillings, that's almost like $1, yes? But within that, with that dollar, they can actually save a quarter of it, or maybe 20% of that, and they're able to put that money aside. Teach them to be kind as well, even when they're working so hard, because that way, because again, we've realized that families, as time goes on, the generation today, we're not in touch with our families, leave alone our friends. We're not really in touch with our families. If something happened, would I be in a position to help somebody else? So the money aspect really comes in and helps us with that. Make sure when you are planning your budget, let your child be involved.
Right.
Involve your children in everything, and stop talking negatively about money to your
Yes.
children, because that's the other thing. Every time you start telling a child, you think money grows on trees.
Yes.
It actually affects their mindset. Every time you keep on telling your child, there's no money, you're speaking into something very different. So by the time they're getting money, that's actually what they'll be working with. And you know, once they get their money, the other thing they'll be like, you know, when I was growing up, there was no money to do this. So I have my money, I'm gonna spend my money on exactly what I always wanted to do. Ending up helping them actually, or directing them, or making sure that they're making the wrong decisions.
Yes.
And I'm saying this with a lot of I'm trying to affirm this with a lot of passion, that guys, anytime you start telling your children there's no money, you're actually wasting them. Just tell them, for now, that the money I have will not be able to perform that particular task. I will not be able to buy that. But just let's work something out. So you're taking them with you on a journey that's going to help them make better financial decisions. They'll be able to live the lifestyle that they want. They'll be able to travel the world. Kutoka Ushago, then coming to Nairobi, and like, your child has traveled. The world is a bigger place. They need to go to Maldives. They need to go to, you know, whatever, yes? And that they can learn by planning.
You just came here to rub people the wrong way. Maureen, I can't tell you how great you've been and how amazing it has been to host you on the show. First of all, to talk to us about couples and money last week, and then today to just hit the nail on the head when it comes to children and money. And remember, again, you can be a part of this conversation by sending your feedback to our social media handles. And remember, you can access the past episodes of our collaboration with Centonomy on our YouTube pages. This goes on and on and on, so please keep it locked on Eye on the Money, and I'll have so much more amazing shows coming your way. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of your viewing.